The evening sun painted the sky in soft gold, and Margaret reached for her phone, her heart fluttering. Today, she thought she'd finally ask Ethan about the wedding. She had waited for this moment for months. Her pale pink dress hung neatly in the closet, pressed and ready. The new shoes sat below it, still in the box. A delicate pearl necklace waited on her nightstand. Everything was ready, every detail planned for her son's big day, their big day. She dialed Ethan's number, smiling softly, but before he could answer, Sophie appeared, Ethan's fiancée. Her hair was perfect, her expression unreadable. "Mom," Sophie said lightly, almost too calm. "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." The words hit Margaret like ice water. Only special people? The phone almost slipped from her hands. 3 years of paying their $500 rent every month, of furnishing their apartment piece by piece, of filling their fridge when they had nothing to eat. And still, she wasn't special? Ethan stood there, head bowed, avoiding her eyes. Sophie leaned back on the couch, on the sofa Margaret had bought, completely at ease. Margaret's eyes went to the pink dress in her closet, the shoes, the pearl necklace. She imagined herself in the wedding photos, the photos she would never appear in. She had spent $200 on the dress, set aside $1,000 as a gift, and invested countless hours of love, hope, and anticipation. All of it meant nothing. Her voice shook. "I see," she whispered. Ethan mumbled, "Mom, it was just a small ceremony, nothing big." But Margaret knew he was lying, because later that night, she opened her phone and there it was. Sophie in a white dress, Ethan in a gray suit, both smiling, champagne glasses raised. Around them, Sophie's family, her sisters, her friends, all the special people. Margaret felt the chill again. Her son's wedding, the moment she had dreamed of, happened without her. The pale pink dress in her closet stared back, mocking. The words replayed in her head, soft but cutting. "Only special people." Her chest tightened. For a long while, she just sat there. The glow from her phone reflected in her tearful eyes, and then she whispered, "Only special people." The words didn't just hurt, they awakened something inside her. The morning started like any other, sunlight spilling across Margaret's kitchen floor as she sipped her coffee slowly, letting the warmth fill her chest while thinking about the day ahead. Today she would finally hear the details, finally know when her son's wedding was. She picked up the phone, thumb hovering over Ethan's name, her heart beating faster with anticipation like it always did when it came to him. "Mom?" Ethan answered, his voice a little too calm. Before she could speak, Sophie cut in, her words smooth, precise, chilling. "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." Margaret froze. Special people. Not me. Her hand tightened around the phone. 3 years of her life poured out for them. Rent payments, furniture, groceries, gifts. Her own life, her own comfort set aside. And for what? She remembered every dollar, every late night at the bank counting bills so they could have a roof over their heads, every skipped meal, every postponed plan, all so they could live comfortably. And she wasn't special. Ethan didn't meet her eyes. He looked anywhere but at her. Sophie lounged on the couch Margaret had bought for them, smiling like she owned everything. Her chest ached. The pink dress she had spent hours selecting, the shoes, the necklace, all of it seemed like a cruel joke now. Weeks of planning gone in a single sentence. Margaret's voice was barely audible.
I see, she said, though her hands shook. Ethan's voice was calm, rehearsed. It was small, Mom, just the two of us and a few witnesses. But Margaret knew better. Later that night, social media betrayed the truth. Photos flooding her screen, Sophie in a flowing white gown, radiant, Ethan in a tailored gray suit, smiling with pride, champagne glasses raised, laughter frozen in frames. Sophie's parents beaming beside them, her siblings clinking glasses. Everyone Margaret had imagined as special people, but never her. Her heart sank.
For a week, Margaret replayed that moment over and over. Sophie's words, that single chilling phrase, only special people. And then came the call. Exactly 7 days after the wedding, her phone rang. Unknown number, but the voice. Unmistakable. "Renee, the rent is overdue," Sophie said, but this time, her tone was different. Gone was the confident, untouchable voice. Now it trembled, desperate. "The landlord says if we don't pay this week, we'll be kicked out. You forgot to make the transfer." Margaret held the phone, her chest tightening. All those nights, running to the bank, all those plans she had canceled, all the sacrifices, and now, after being humiliated her, they called for money as if nothing had happened? Her voice was calm, sharper than she expected. "Didn't I warn you that I only help special people?" Silence, then a stammered attempt at justification. "Renee, we were always special to you. You're like a second mom." Lies. All lies. That sweet, soft voice was used only when she needed something. Used to ask for money for the dress, the honeymoon, the rings, all things Margaret had financed. The realization hit her like a wave. For years, she had walked on eggshells, measuring every word, every gesture, every gift, hoping for a crumb of affection from her own son. She had been the perfect mother, the obliging mother-in-law, the silent provider, invisible but always there. But Sophie's words had awakened something dormant. Margaret began to calculate rent, food, gifts, emergencies, all of it. Over 3 years, more than $20,000 taken from her retirement, her savings, money meant for her golden years. And now, after being treated as invisible, they dared to ask for more? That night, she cried, not out of sadness, but anger. Years of frustration, of silent endurance, all surfacing at once. Tears for the woman she had been, the woman who had lost herself trying to be indispensable to people who considered her dispensable. The next morning, Margaret looked in the mirror. Same tired eyes, same wrinkles from decades of care, but something had changed. A hard edge had appeared, a determination she hadn't felt in years. Coffee in hand, she sat at the table where she had once counted bills for them and planned their lives. Now she made a decision. She would reclaim her life. She took out her checkbook, her bank statements, and began to tally. $500 rent for 36 months, $18,000, food and supplies, $7,200, birthday, Christmas, and anniversary gifts, $3,000, medical emergencies, $800, car loans, $2,500, AC repair, $600, living room furniture, $1,200, $33,400. Every penny of her generosity was spent on 2 adults who couldn't respect her enough to even invite her to their wedding. The phone rang again. Ethan, Sophie, repeated calls. She let him ring. She ignored the texts. For the first time, she prioritized herself. Walking through the park, passing the swings she once pushed her young son on, she wondered when he had become this man. A man who saw her as an ATM, not a mother. At the bank, she canceled automatic transfers and learned how to protect her accounts so no one could take advantage of her again. The audacity, the lies, all met with silence now. She had finally opened her eyes. Her phone continued to ring, but she ignored it. For the first time in years, she felt a strange lightness. Her money, her life, hers again. At home, she found familiar chaos awaiting her. Cars she didn't recognize, people she didn't invite. Ethan and Sophie frantically trying to access her finances, an older man going through her papers. Margaret's voice was firm. "This is my house, my documents. You have no right here." Shock and anger flashed across their faces. Sophie's desperate facade crumbled. Ethan looked like a boy caught in a lie, not the man she raised. The lawyer tried reasoning, but Margaret did not flinch. She had clarity now, not confusion. "Clearer than I've ever been," she said. "Leave." She stood her ground, her independence non-negotiable. They had underestimated her, but Margaret had awakened. Her eyes, once soft with endless giving, now burned with the fire of someone reclaiming what was hers. She realized for the first time in years she did not need their approval, their thanks, or even their love. Her life belonged to her alone. The story's only getting darker from here. The betrayal cuts deep, and Margaret's journey is just beginning. Stay tuned and don't forget to like and subscribe. The real emotions are yet to come. Margaret woke up the next morning, feeling a strange calm. The betrayal from the previous week still stung, but anger had replaced sadness, and with anger came clarity. She moved quietly around her kitchen, pouring herself a cup of coffee, the steam rising like a signal of new beginnings. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. Today, things would change. Not for Ethan, not for Sophie, but for her. For the first time in years, she considered herself first. She sat down at her table, the same one that she had tracked every dollar, counted every rent check, every grocery run, every emergency gift. The numbers haunted her still. $33,400, all given to two adults who treated her as a convenience, not a mother. Margaret smiled faintly. The phone rang. Unknown number. She didn't flinch. It was Sophie. "Renata, please, we need to talk. It's urgent." Margaret sipped her coffee slowly. "Yes, Sophie, I remember you, but I only respond to special people now." Silence. A pause long enough to hear Sophie's confusion, long enough for Margaret to savor the shift in power. "Yes, special people," Margaret continued, her voice calm, deliberate. "For 3 years, I was yours, always available, always giving, always bending. You never treated me as special. And now it's time you understand what that means." Sophie stammered. I don't understand. We love you. We were always special." Margaret laughed softly, but it wasn't cruel. It was precise, measured. "You only ever considered me special when it suited your needs. Money, favors, emergencies. That was your definition of love." She stood, walking slowly through the house, feeling the walls, the furniture, every object that had borne witness to years of sacrifice. For 3 years, I was the silent provider, invisible but always present, used, ignored, excluded. And for what? A wedding I wasn't invited to, a life I financed but could not participate in. The words echoed through the empty rooms. She could almost hear the ghosts of her past generosity whispering back, "You gave too much. You let them take too much."
And she had, but no more.
Margaret pulled out a folder from her drawer. It contained every bank statement, every check, every proof of her support. She would no longer be a victim. The numbers, once a testament to her giving heart, were now weapons of clarity and resolve. She began making calls: the bank to secure her accounts, her attorney, Mr. Weber, to discuss elder financial abuse. Everything needed to be airtight. Ethan called again, insistently, but Margaret ignored him. Sophie's texts flooded her phone. "Mom, please, we need you." Ignored. Every attempt to reach her now fell on deaf ears. Margaret spent the afternoon planning: locks, security cameras, and new bank accounts. The life she had postponed for others would finally be hers. She thought about the phrase that had cut her deepest: only special people. It had been a dagger once, but now it had become her mantra. Only special people get her attention. Only special people get her care. Only special people get her trust. And she was the first person on that list. By evening, the house was quiet. She sat at her kitchen table, drafting letters to secure her assets, and for the first time, she tasted freedom. Her phone rang again, unknown number. It was Sophie, from another phone, trying to bypass the blocks. "Renate, please, we're desperate. We love you. We need you." Margaret looked out the window, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of fire. Her heartbeat was steady now, her hands still, her mind clear. "You never loved me, Sophie. You loved what I could give you. You loved the comfort I provided. And now I am taking it back. I am special to myself first. And until you learn that lesson, you have no claim here." Sophie's voice cracked. Margaret smiled faintly. It wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. A teacher finally correcting a lesson learned too late. Over the next few days, Margaret implemented her plan. She changed the locks herself, watching as Ethan and Sophie's faces appeared at her door, only to be met with the silence of a woman who would not be manipulated. The security system went up. Every corner of her home was under constant watch, monitored and protected. No surprises, no invasions, no manipulations. Her money, her time, her energy, finally hers again. And the calls? Ignored. The text? Deleted without a second thought. Margaret spent the evening sipping tea, reflecting on her journey. She thought of all the trips she had postponed, all the friends she had neglected, all the hobbies she had abandoned. She made a silent vow: never again. She would spend on herself. She would live for herself. She would cherish the people who were truly special. And for the first time in decades, Margaret felt alive. She understood now. Love is not a transaction. Respect is not earned with money. And being special is not granted by birthright or proximity. It is earned by how one treats another's heart. And she, Margaret, was finally treating her own heart with the dignity it deserved. That night, she wrote in her journal, "Today, I became the only person I am guaranteed to be special to. And that is enough." Her phone rang one last time that evening. She looked at it, smiled, and turned it off. No one could reach her now, unless she allowed it. The realization settled deep in her bones. The power was hers. The control was hers. Her peace was hers. And with that peace came a fierce, undeniable strength.
Margaret had been betrayed. She had been used. She had been invisible. But now she was unstoppable. The phrase echoed in her mind like a victorious anthem. Only special people. And finally, she was one of them. The morning light spilled into Margaret's living room like a quiet promise. For the first time in years, she woke without a knot of anxiety in her chest. No missed calls, no desperate texts, no manipulative requests. Her house smelled faintly of fresh coffee, her favorite scent lingering in the kitchen, and for the first time it felt like hers, truly hers. She poured herself a cup, letting the warmth seep into her hands. The silence around her was more than just absence of noise. It was liberation. Margaret smiled faintly. She had survived the storm, but more importantly, she had discovered herself. She looked around the living room at the furniture she had once bought for others, and now each piece felt like a testament to her resilience. A sofa, once a throne for entitlement, now her throne of victory. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Margaret didn't flinch. It was Sophie again, pleading, insisting, promising. She let it ring. Once. Twice. Then silence. The power dynamic had shifted. She was no longer available on demand. She was no longer a resource. She was a human being with needs, desires, and boundaries. Margaret dressed slowly, deliberately, choosing clothes that made her feel alive, not obligated, not performing, not invisible. Today, she would take steps for herself, not for anyone else. Her first stop was the small boutique downtown where she used to accompany Sophie and Ethan on errands, handing over money for dresses and groceries, always with a smile, always silent, always enduring. The owner, a kind woman named Leela, greeted her warmly. "Margaret, it's been ages. I didn't see you in months." Margaret returned the smile, a genuine one, not measured for others. "I'm back, Leela. For me, this time." She walked through the aisles, touching fabrics, imagining herself in dresses she wouldn't have dared wear before. No one to judge, no one to manipulate. Just Margaret, alive, present, and free. Next, she visited the local cafe she loved as a younger woman. The barista, a young man named Kyle, smiled when he recognized her. "Back again, Margaret." "Yes, I'm here for me today." And she lingered, sipping her latte slowly, watching people pass by, absorbing life she had long neglected.
At the park later, Margaret paused near the swings where, decades ago, she had pushed Max on warm summer afternoons. She remembered that innocent boy, laughing, trusting, loving her simply for being her mother, and she wept, not for sorrow, but for release. She had mourned what she had lost. Now she honored what she had gained. Back home, Margaret's contractor, Ethan, and Mr. Summer arrived to install the final touches on her new security system. The cameras went up, locks were reinforced, alarms activated, every corner of her home secured, every potential intrusion denied. Margaret watched the process with satisfaction. No longer fear-driven, no longer anxious, no longer beholden to the whims of others. She picked up her phone to call her sister, Diana, in Chicago. It had been months since they had spoken freely, without the veil of financial updates and family obligations. "Diana," Margaret began, her voice lighter than it had been in years. "Sister, it's me. I finally stopped." Diana listened, silent, letting Margaret pour out every detail. The wedding betrayal, the lawyer, the emotional manipulation, the years of giving. When Margaret finished, Diana said softly, "Renee, I always hoped you would see it. I never doubted your love, but I feared they would take it for granted. Now you've taken your life back. That's all that matters." Margaret felt a weight lift. Her heart, once tethered to obligation and guilt, was now free to beat for herself. That evening, she took out her journals,
long-neglected pages filled with dreams, hopes, and plans she had abandoned for others. She wrote again, deliberately, lovingly, this time for Margaret, not for anyone else. Dinner was a quiet affair, a simple meal she prepared for herself, luxurious only because it was her choice. No phone calls, no distractions, no pressure. Just Margaret and the satisfaction of reclaiming her time. Days turned into weeks. Margaret explored old hobbies, reconnected with friends she had neglected, attended events she had skipped for the sake of financial obligations. She began volunteering at a local community center, not because she was asked or needed, but because she wanted to. Giving for love, not expectation, sharing time without attachment. One morning, as she sipped tea on her porch, she noticed the neighbor, Eleanor Brooks, waving from across the street. Eleanor had been quietly supportive during the turbulent week, and Margaret realized she had genuine friends, people who valued her for who she was, not for what she could provide. Margaret invited Eleanor over. They sat together, laughing, talking, sharing memories and hopes. For the first time in years, Margaret felt surrounded by people who made her heart smile. A letter arrived from Sophie a few days later. It was polite, apologetic, but Margaret only skimmed it. She had no intention of returning to the patterns of old. She would respond one day, perhaps, but only on her terms, when she felt ready, when they truly understood what it meant to be special. Margaret's home had become a sanctuary, a place where her laughter could echo, where her tears could fall unashamed, where her choices were sacred.
She reflected on the phrase that had ignited her transformation, only special people. It had once been a sting, a rejection, a humiliation. Now it was her armor, her shield, her mantra. She had learned that life's true value was not in giving endlessly to those who would never respect you, but in reserving love, time, and energy for oneself and those who truly deserved it. Margaret's days were now hers to fill. Trips she had postponed, hobbies she had abandoned, friendships she had neglected. All revived. All embraced. On a quiet evening, she looked out her window at the sunset. She raised her cup of tea in a silent toast to herself. She had weathered betrayal. She had faced manipulation. She had reclaimed control. And in doing so, Margaret discovered something profound. Happiness does not come from others recognizing your value. It comes from recognizing it yourself. The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Margaret smiled softly, set the phone aside, and whispered, "I am special. I have always been special. And from now on, I will only let those into my life who know that." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across her home, her sanctuary, her fortress, her life. Margaret sat back, breathing deeply, feeling a peace she hadn't known in decades. Her heart was full, her spirit unshakable, her future entirely her own. The betrayal that had once broken her had now forged a stronger, wiser, unstoppable woman. And for Margaret, that was enough.
This is the power of reclaiming yourself. The story of betrayal, courage, and independence reminds us all you are the most critical person in your own life. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories that speak to the soul.